Hello, my fellow Childfree travelers. We are in Paris for day 2, and we're getting out of our hotel. We've got our chocolate croissant and some cafe, and we are sitting in a nice little Parisian cafe. And we're just gonna sit and enjoy until 10 o'clock at least, because that's when we have to go to the Pantheon Paris. Now, the Pantheon Paris is cited as a great example of 18th century's neoclassicism architecture, ordered in 1750 as an abbey church to honor Saint Geneviève, the patron saint of Paris. Its design was inspired by a Greek cross with a dome somewhat similar to St. Paul's in London. The construction works of the Pantheon Paris have started 15 years later, but due to financial problems, it was presented to the public in 1789. Probably not the best time for a fancy monument to be opened in Paris. However, the result is an enormous dome that looks over and seen throughout from all over the left bank of the Seine. The building of the Pantheon Paris has changed its purpose at some point to become a mausoleum that holds the remains of some of France's most famous people, such as Victor Hugo, Émile Zola, and Marie Curie. While entering the Pantheon, Paris looks very artistic when you look at the beautiful wall paintings of Saint Genevieve's life. Make the most of your time in Ile-de-France by getting Pantheon tickets in advance to save both time and money. Then we're going to go to the Notre Dame, which I believe is now open to the public I think it's now open to the public. We all know about the 2019 fire that just ravaged the cathedral, but thankfully it was able to be restored. The Notre Dame Cathedral is visited by more than 10 million tourists and lies at the very heart of Paris, and by some, even the entire France. Also, we know the book that was written about it, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and then it was Disney-fied. But the Notre Dame Cathedral is practically huge. Its interior is alone is 425 feet long, 150 feet wide, and 115 foot high. It can host about 5,000 worshippers at any given prayer service. Some of its exceptional structures include the spectacular rose windows. Pay special attention to the 30-foot wide one rising above the huge pipe organ. The entrance at the Twin Towers was immortalized by Victor Hugo, rising to a height of 220 feet, is of the North Tower. There are 90-minute guided tours of the cathedral in English at noon on Wednesday, 2 p.m. on Thursday, and 2:30 on Saturday. Now, just a quick note, I actually did go on a tour that took us around the Notre Dame, because in 2023 it wasn't yet set to be it wasn't open to visitors at the time inside. So we got some pretty good information about the Notre Dame from its surrounding view. All right, after Notre Dame, we're going to go to the Louvre. Oh God, the heist. I hope they got that art back. The Louvre was originally a fortress, and you can tell that it was definitely that rich people live there, because there's paintings on the ceiling. Only rich people could afford it back then. It was turned over to the French Revolutionists, who decided that it should become France's first national museum. Now, Francois I and Louis XIV purchased most of the paintings and sculptures, while the rest were contributed or purchased or simply taken by Napoleon, later to be returned to the original owner's family. The most famous smile in the world, better known as the Mona Lisa, was ordered by Francois I from Leonardo da Vinci. It gained most of its glory after it was stolen in 1911, by a Louvre employee who simply left the building with a painting under his coat. The entrance of the Louvre Museum, Paris, is a glass pyramid, one of the city's most distinct symbols, and what has become a tourist attraction by itself, as no photo album of Paris would seem to be complete without it. So the Louvre Museum is famous not only for its art, but unfortunately for the long line you have to stand in order to get your chance at anything. So do a skip the line pack. There's also audio guided tours that you can go to as well. Now let's get some wine at a chateau. Whether you're a wine novice or a connoisseur, the Au Chateau wine tasting is for you. With a unique approach, this is a great opportunity to have some fun and experience some great French wine. Paris Pass holders get free entry to Au Chateau Wine 2-3 tasting session. That's a fantastic saving of €30. So this introductory session includes tasting of 3 French wines and takes place at Au Chateau's historic cellar, Central Paris. Now we're going to go to the Palais Garnier Opera House, which was constructed from 1857 to 1874 by Charles Garnier. The neo-Baroque landmark building is located on Boulevard des Capucines and is named after the architect in honor of the stunning and opulent architecture. This building was the first home of the Paris Opera Company and is now also home to the Paris Opera Ballet. The Paris Opera House also houses the Paris Opera Library Museum, Bibliothèque Musée de l'Opéra de Paris. It is possible to visit the Opera House to see a performance or to tour the building. When you visit on a tour, you have access to the public areas, Grand Foyer, Grand Staircase, and the Opera Library Museum, the permanent collections, set models, artwork, and if there is no performance or rehearsal in progress, you may get to see the auditorium as well. There are themed tours as well as self-guided audio tours. I'm living for the self-guided audio tours. Then we're gonna go to the Tuileries Gardens. The spectacular Tuileries Gardens, Paris, Jardin des Tuileries, it can be found just between the Louvre and Place de la Concorde. It was designed in 1564 by Catherine de' Medici as a garden for the Tuileries Palace, Louis XIV. The Tuileries Garden is probably the most French garden you can find all across Paris, with fine rows of trees and well-formed paths. The garden has opened its gates for everyone to stroll in back in 1667, but it only became a public park after the French Revolution. It was once the place to see and be seen in Paris, and as of today, it is a place where locals meet to enjoy afternoon walk or just relax. There are also 18 bronze statues in the Tuileries Gardens created by Mayol. If you happen to be here in the summer, July and August, make sure you're taking a Ferris wheel ride to see the lovely views of the traditional fun fair, which takes place just beside Rue de Rivoli. And that brings us to day 3, and we are tuckered out. Let's get some dinner, maybe some tapas or something like that if it's a little earlier, and then have dinner a little bit later. But this has been day 2 in France. Let's conclude day 3 next time. See you soon.